David Paul Seymour show. Man, okay, so I got to start off and say right off the top that it is a humbling pleasure to be speaking to this man tonight. You know, I've been a Cirith Ungol fan since I think I was like 14 or 15. I don't know what age I was in eighth grade, but it was like eighth grade, and I'll tell my quick little story, and then I'll stop making it about me. But uh, I had this friend named Tommy Clayton, and he was like my metalhead friend. I skirted the lines between being a punk rock kid and a metal kid. I loved them both, but I had friends who were just punk rock kids, and I had friends who were just metal kids, and I hung out with them both. And anyway, me and this Tommy Clayton kid, we had a math class together, and it was like dummy math, it was like just really dummy math. And he had brought it because we used to trade records or tapes just to like, oh, check this out, check this, and we'd borrow them for a week. And he brought King of the Dead in, and he loaned it to me, man, and I never gave it back. I was like, no, man, I can't. I'll bring something else you can keep, but I'm going to keep this one. So I kept the record, and I wound up actually getting pulled out in the hallway that day and paddled by that math teacher one time because we were just talking about the artwork on the record, and we so he's like, all right, Seymour, come out in the hallway. You just, I told you to be quiet, and you didn't be quiet. And the guy had like arms like this big. He was like an old football player. He actually was the coach. Like he was a coach, get one of those guys. So he brought me out in the hall, and I was just looking at those big arms, man, and he brought that paddle down, and bam, and that was literally still one of the most painful things in my life. That hurt so hard, old wooden paddle. And he goes, I'm only gonna give you the one because everybody used to do three. He goes, it only takes one with me, man. And that was it. So that's my intro, like literally all in that same class period to the band and getting
Well,
the.
I I'm nowhere near as good an artist as you are, but I always drew uh, ever since I was a little kid, even up to right now. Not as much now as I used to. But I had a question for you because
Oh,
when I was in school a lot, you're supposed to be paying attention in math or what have you,
yeah.
and I'd be drawing. I'd be drawing little pictures of cars or like drum sets or. But
Yeah.
my back to you is. Since you were such a great artist, when you were in class, did you ever get in trouble for doodling on your peachy folders or whatever?
Well, yeah, for a while. The funny thing is, like later on in high school, I actually got this one English teacher. I think she was the smartest one of the bunch because she started off telling me like, "Hey, quit drawing, put that away, and whatever, pay attention." We finally came to an understanding that like she realized like I was paying more attention to what she was saying when I was drawing. I was like able to really like harness my focus and hear. And so she would let me draw during class, and it even got to the point where she had me staying after school for extra credit doing painting like scenes from like Beowulf and Hamlet and shit on the walls, and it's like I did these murals. And I had some friends go back for like a 20 what year whatever anniversary high school reunion, which I didn't go to. And they said, man, those murals are still up on the wall, and Miss what's her, I don't even remember her name, in her room. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I did get in trouble, but she was cool.
What's funny about high school, especially for me, was I hated school like most kids, especially guys who were like rockers or what have you. But there was teachers, especially I had an art teacher once. I remember his name, Mr. Frickholm, and he encouraged me to draw. And what I think so amazing about that is it if you can have a teacher that actually stimulates your imagination
Yeah,
and give you confidence.
yeah,
I mean, you may not think of it at the time when you're in school, but later on you may look back at that and say, hey, this teacher, this group of teachers actually helped me get to where I am today by their support.
yeah.
And so I'm a big proponent of public schools, but I think you get out of it what you put into it, right?
Right, right, right. I didn't put much in, man. I didn't do so well in school. I had to repeat 10th grade, so if that tells you anything. So
Well, what about your art class? I mean, you did.
I
Was
actually
there?
did horrible in art class. It was one of my worst classes because, like, I didn't like kind of like being told, I guess, what to draw or whatever. I mean, like, it was looking back on it's really stupid. Like, but this guy like because literally all I really could ever do and still is draw. Like I wasn't good at sculpting clay, and I wasn't good at like making cutting all this shit up and gluing it together. He had us doing like all kind of shit, like drawing. Like we seldom ever actually like sat down and just drew. It was always like it was everything I was terrible at. I'm a very limited. I'm a one trick pony, man. So like if it's not a pencil or a pen, I mean, I even suck at painting. Like I'm not like what Michael Whalen does. Like I could never do that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm more of an illustrator, I guess, than any kind of fine art medium just throws me for a loop. So, yeah, I actually sucked. I really did. Like I was horrible, and I don't think he thought much of me, but I don't know.
Well, I think you're a great artist. I think to be a good artist, you have to be able to draw a person's face. And I could never, I mean, I was really good at modern art and really weird things. Like you
Yeah,
said, sculpture.
yeah,
They'd say, well, other people would be making a little dog or cat,
yeah,
some Henry Moore type thing or whatever, with some kind of like,
yeah,
some, weird, like round shape with an arm around it, like Saturn's ring,
yeah.
something
That's
very,
cool. Yeah,
and everyone would look at it and go, wow, what is that? They'd make up some story.
yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
anyway, I envy you because, like I said, I think you're a pretty good artist.
well, man, that means the world coming from you, dude. And you know how I feel about you and the band you're in. So I mean, that's a real compliment coming from you. So. Um, yeah. So speaking of the band you're in, so I thought let's maybe walk through for everybody some of the history, man. I mean, it's a steeped history and goes back a long ways. And I thought we'd start at the beginning. I mean, like when you guys first got together, because that was like in the what late '70s or something when you first really guys got together and started playing and.
Well, it was actually earlier than that. It's around 19. I recently went back to when we first got back together. When we first got together, originally, I would write some of the shows that we played, and then later on, I typed them up. And then, as the band went on, I'd write in a few here or there. After the band got back together 5 years ago, I found that, and I went back and I turned it into an Excel spreadsheet, and
Yeah.
I started getting a bunch of our old posters out, and I started looking at them. I started adding years, and it was kind of like a Sherlock Holmes mystery because a lot of the ones I'm thinking, what year is this? But so I would look at the dates, like if it says February the 15th, Wednesday night, because always I did most of the posters for the band, and at the very top, once again, I'm trying to sell the band. I would put, the day, like Wednesday, February 2nd, or what have you on there, eight
Yeah.
o'clock p.m., so that people knew, and
Right.
that's the first thing they teach journalists, like who, what, when, and where, whatever.
Right. Right.
So anyway, luckily all these information was on the poster. So I went back, and it was really complicated, but I finally found a website that actually had a thing where you put in like Wednesday, February 2nd, and it would tell you what years that landed on. Now, the good news
Oh.
was that the band was together, even though for a long time I knew the general area. So
Right.
sometimes they would say, well, that date was either 1971 or 1981. Well, I knew it was too early to be 81, so it had to be 71. So anyway, I kind of I put a whole thing together right there. And so the band, actually, we played one of our first gigs at Cirith Ungol in 1971. And you got to remember, we were young kids. We were like 13. So you said that you started getting into our band when you're 14. So that's about the same time I was getting into the
Wow.
band. So.
Yeah. I wonder how old you guys were. I'm getting out of chronology here because we were talking
Oh,
about the history, but it's just a quick question. I'm just curious now, like how old do you think you guys were when you recorded and put King of the Dead out? I'm looking for like what was the difference in age between you and me when I found that record and how old you guys were.
well,
That was
I could, I
86
could
or
figure
something?
out, the album came out in 1984. I know that, I don't
Four.
know the
Oh,
exact
four.
date,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but it came out in 1984. So I can, we try to find a calculator here. I was 28.
Well, okay, cool.
So, and you figure, and another question, I've been doing a lot of interviews because the new album's coming out.
Sure.
Uh, and I don't want to shamelessly plug that, but our fifth studio album, Forever Black, is going to be released
Yeah, plug
April
away.
24th, Metal Blade.
Yeah.
But anyway, people keep asking me, how come it took so long for you to have your first album out in 1981? Because there's like 10 years between that. But you remember, we were like 13, so it's
Right.
that'd be like saying, now I guess you can be 13 and go-kart race and maybe be a semi-professional racer, but let's say you could be 13 and want to be a truck driver. You couldn't really be a truck driver until you got your actual driver's license, right? So we were so young, and we were just learning our instruments. And I'm sure some people say that we're still learning our instruments. But it took us all that time to kind of make it through junior high school and high school.
Yeah.
And then, working on material and recording it, and trying to actually, I think we graduated in 1974, and I think right about that time, and was really starting to kick into gear. We had a different singer than Neil Beatty, and we played a bunch of shows, and it was starting to be like we were deciding that, hey, we're going to try to, if not make a career out of this, we want to share our music with other people.
Yeah.
And so that's about the time where we started getting serious enough that we were sending out tapes to record companies and what have you.
Yeah.
And along that period, Neil was a great singer. We loved him. He was really good a performer. And people always that never saw him asked, like, well, what kind of performer was he? When he was in the band, kind of like our leanings were more like almost like Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
We were still playing hard, heavy rock, but he was that kind of a singer.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to put your finger on it, but that's what he was. At some point, we were trying to decide, where we wanted our career to go, and I think we wanted it to go into like a heavier and a darker leaning, more like a Deep Purple or Uriah Heep or something like that.
Right.
A Black Sabbath, what have you. And so for a while, we went without a vocalist, and we played some big shows even in Los Angeles at some of the big clubs like the Starwood as an instrumental group, which is pretty unheard of because back then, to be in a band, you were playing, you had a singer and, two guitarists, a drummer, and a bass player, organist, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But Tim was one of our buddies. He also was doing sound for the band. And I'm not sure how it came about, but one day we're like, hey, he goes, can I try out a song or something? And we recorded him, and we were just like, wow, this is great. And we thought, hey, maybe this is going to be our singer in the band. And I think the rest is history.
Wow. That song, that first one that he recorded with you, I mean, did it just like, it was like Cirith Ungol, like right there, like, or was it kind of, you know what I mean, like different, or did he just like nail, like this jump, that's it?
Well, it's pretty easy to find out, at least for you to decide on your own. Around the year 2000 or so, all this news was coming out about all these old tapes were deteriorating. And so a lot of the Ampex tape that people were recording stuff on was falling apart.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a big push to take everything you can to get it digitized before it was self-destroyed, right?
Yeah.
So Metal Blade and Records in Germany got in contact with me and said, hey, we'd like to do a project with you. And I said, well, the band's broken up, but somehow that it came up that we had some of this old material that had never been released. And so that's how the album Servants of Chaos came about.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer your question, if you go into that album Servants of Chaos, and you could probably go online and find any one of the songs, you'll hear some of the earliest songs that Tim actually recorded with us that we did demos on.
Oh, okay. Done. So what else? So let's rewind back to the history. So you guys picked him up, and he got started. Where to go from there? As soon as you guys decided he was the singer.
Well, I think when we did the demos that I talked about, like the ones you can hear on Servants of Chaos,
mm-hmm.
We'd already been doing this. We're still doing this today. We had it was in, my sister got married and moved out, so the band took over her bedroom, and we were lucky enough to have, my parents were really supportive of the band. And so my dad would be at work, and we'd come home from school or junior college or whatever, and we'd go in around every night about the same amount, like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock at night. We'd put up a big board that had carpet over it at the window, and we'd play. Now we were lucky enough that my sister married the guy next door, so the neighbors on the side the band room was technically part of my family relatives, and
Right.
so even if they wanted to complain, they didn't.
Yeah.
But over the years, sometimes people in the neighborhood would start coming over and causing a scene, but we were pretty good. The reason that I think that we survived doing that for such a long time in that one bedroom was, we told all the neighbors, hey, look, we're going to play from 5 to 6 o'clock 3 nights a week.
Hmm.
And if you don't like it, that's the time for you to go to the store
Smart.
or go to yoga class, walk the dog or what have
Yeah.
you. So, and in that room, we had a closet and it was all cleaned out and we put some equipment in there, but we had a 4-track tape recorder up on the shelf and we had like a little Tascam mixing console. So we were recording all our own songs and music. And that's how, when the band first started recording our music, we started making our own demos. And that kind of led eventually to Frost and Fire, our first album.
Yeah.
But once again, if you wanted to hear any of those, a lot more on the Servants of Chaos album.
Okay. All right.
But
Yeah.
for kids today, I think, and it's cool too. And I've done this, even though I like buying CDs because sometimes it seems like you're supporting the band just downloading a song.
Oh yeah.
But that's obviously where the future is why have 300 or 400 CDs or albums if you can have, electronic files. But that said, I have pictures of fans send me from all over the world, and they have entire walls of LPs, and it's so amazing to look at the commitment of people that are collectors like that.
Yeah.
And really warms my heart seeing that because that was me at one time,
Right.
so.
Yep. Yeah. How has the response been, man? I mean, I know like I'm jumping ahead a bit and we'll come back, but like the live album, listening to that, man, that sounds like the kind of audience that you guys, I'm imagining, have all throughout Europe, and that's the kind of audience you guys deserve. And tell me about like the audience reactions to you guys, like now, like when you're out playing now on these festivals that you play, these Frost and Fire Fests, or the stuff in Europe, that you guys do.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Now, however,
Let's pretend like that didn't happen and just pick right back up. I'll cut that out. But damn dog.
no, that's cool. I love dogs.
I do too.
What I was gonna say is, we played in Milwaukee and you were there, so you saw that. I mean, it's like people are, I think they're amazed that a band that's as old as us that broke up for so long actually got back together.
Yeah.
So I hope they're grading us on a curve. But, I think the people that come out to see us, I think that they love heavy metal like we do, and I think they're feel fortunate to see a band that may only play a few shows for we wrap it up again. So everyone's been really supportive. I mean, that's the only thing I can say. We played shows where I look out in the audience, and as far as I can see, people are cheering, and it's just to see that it makes you feel good about what you did. And we worked for so long writing material that was never appreciated. And a lot of people say, "Do you feel like you've been appreciated enough now?" And I said, since we went so long without any appreciation, we'll take whatever we could get.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, you're right. I was, me and Tim from Planet of Doom. We were at that show together, and that was just great, man. That was a great night. That was a great show. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but like I had no idea what to expect going into it. You know what I mean? And like there was a huge part of me that was like, God, I hope these guys don't let me down. Please don't let me please don't let this be like a cartoonish experience of like what was or. And I'm gonna be perfectly frank. When you guys came out, I mean, into the first fucking song, it was like I looked at Tim. I'm like, they sound better. They sound better than the old records. And like you ask him, I told him that. I'm like, it was incredible. I mean, you guys all still had the chop. You guys all sound like you're 20 when you play now. And that's incredible to me. And like Tim's voice, it's amazing too, because like we all know these bands, like Geddy Lee's one of them, who I think he just can't do it anymore. There's so many of them, like whether it's age or whether it was their hard living lifestyle, or I don't know, man, something medical or just how it is. But like there's so many of them that just can't do it. And like Tim sounds like $1 million, man. Like, and all you guys like play so well, and like that show was enormous. And Tim and I probably talked about it for days after, just couldn't believe it. So, for me, that firsthand experience of being there was amazing, and I couldn't imagine what it's like being, say, like when you guys play now in Europe, where you probably got, 10 times that many people in the audience than we had in that small club in Milwaukee. But I'll definitely trade the small, intimate experience for the big one. But I bet the energy for you guys is just huge in those big festivals or those big European shows like that.
Well, I got to give a shout out because Randy, the promoter that brought us up there,
Yeah.
played there. We had such a good time.
Yeah.
I think that weekend I wasn't feeling well or something. I'm not sure what was wrong with me, so I'm not sure that was the best show that I ever played. But once again, it was really kind of like a fun experience, just going to once again to another city we'd never been before and being able to play and meeting the two of you there. That was kind of because we just started working on the Planet of Doom project, and so it was like it was a big thing for us. So
yeah, it was great meeting you guys there, and you guys were very gracious to let us come hang out with you backstage all night and drink some
underground.
Yeah, underground. It was like a basement deal, and drink your beer and all that good stuff. I think we might have ate some of your food.
I think that was an old-time famous Italian restaurant. There was like freezers down there. I kept expecting to open it up and seeing like some mafia guy.
Oh yeah, some body hanging from a meat hook. Yeah. Could have been back then, man. Who knows? No, I didn't know that was the deal with that place.
That was a great experience.
Yeah, that was a really fun night, man. Yeah, and speaking of which, so Tim and I were thinking about going to that Maryland Doom Fest that you guys are at, but are going to play. But I mean, that's probably canceled like everything else, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that, but I know I've been seeing on the news that Maryland's been hit really hard with this stuff. So, yeah, I think we're gonna have to play it day by day and see what's happening.
Yeah, that's kind of what everybody's having to do. Yeah.
I mean, the story is if the flights are flying, that we're gonna go out and try to play, but I'm just worried about the crowds too. I mean, if we play somewhere and everyone gets together and
yeah.
The weird thing too is like most of the shows we play. That's why this is so unprecedented and also kind of like a bummer for most of us. Like, let's say we were supposed to be playing at Keep It True, and it got rescheduled until August. But the last time we played there a few years ago, we spent a couple hours just hugging our fans and signing autographs and taking selfies and pictures with them and stuff. And I mean how can you have a concert without having fun like that? And everyone in the crowd palling around with each other and having a beer and seeing their friends. So, this is going to be kind of a strange situation, but hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping that somehow down the line, they'll get a handle of this, a vaccine or who knows what, we can come out the other end stronger.
Yeah, I hope so too. So let's go back to, talking about the early albums and stuff, and we'll jump back in time and like how was life for you guys like during that time where you're doing like Frost and Fire and King of the Dead? I mean, what was that experience even like? How much touring did you guys do on those albums, and like where did you go? And give me some idea. Like I'm just dying to know like what things were like in those days.
Well, the band never toured, and just like today, we're still not touring traditionally like a regular band would do, where you go on the road and you're gone for a month or two and you play every night or every other night. What we did back then is there's not that many like rock clubs around the town where we live in. Most of them were down in Los Angeles, and it was hard to even get on the bill there as being warm-up band for another act. And so I would spend, I was trying to get all the bookings down there. It would take me months to get just one show, like at the Whiskey or at the Starwood at the Roxy. So when Frost and Fire first came out, we played, one or two shows down at the big places, the clubs that we could get in Los Angeles. And then at the same time, there'd be like a few gigs up here in our local area. Most of them, and it's kind of embarrassing to say, but it's true, they were like Battle of the Band. So I think we played like maybe 5, maybe 10 years in Battle of the Bands, just because it was an opportunity or a vehicle for us to get out and play in front of 300 or 400 people. And what's amazing on one of the ones, the last ones that we played at, we came in second. And the prize for the second place prize was like a $500 gift certificate from a local recording studio, Goldmine Studios. And we used that $500 gift certificate to go in the studio to start working on what would end up being Frost and Fire. So that was kind of a good thing for us. There's a funny, we talked about funny stories, and the night that we played there, we came in second. We lost to a band, and they were called, if I'm not mistaken, Full Sail. Their amp blew up, and they were playing after us. We loaned them an amp, and if we hadn't loaned them an amp, they couldn't play. But we loaned them the amp, and then they won. But you got to remember too, this is California. You know, don't think heavy metal. Think of more like the Beach Boys or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the local promoters at the time, they wanted to get teenagers together almost for what you'd consider to be like a dance, right? You know, and so they wanted bands that would play like dance music. So they're going to put on a little concert, maybe have it down near our local fairgrounds near the beach or whatever, maybe to get 800 or 1,000 kids show up, but they'd all be dancing to music that was more danceable than what you would consider that our band played at the time. At the time when this was going on, that's what the guys who were putting on concerts in our area were doing. Now, there were still big concerts going on in Los Angeles. You know, we're talking about like Black Sabbaths or Deep Purples or stuff like that. And we'd always try to get on as being an opening act to one of those shows. And a couple of times we did. But most of the times, those bands that they're touring through, they had like support groups already with them. So
right. Usually see photos on your Instagram or Facebook with you guys hanging out with like the guys from Iron Maiden or Dio and.
Okay, hang on a second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, something was going on in the other room.
That's okay. Now we're
I don't have a dog. I have a dog, but I heard someone talking in there, so I didn't want it to.
No, it's okay. I can cut all this. I will. Now we're even.
I thought it might bleed through, so that's why I shut the door.
Yeah, no, I couldn't hear anything. It's cool.
So anyway, let me jump back there. That was around the Frost and Fire time. When King of the Dead came out, the band started getting a little bit more support from the record. Not a lot. We were on, at the time, that was on Enigma Records, and they were actually other bands on the label at the time were bands like Rat, Motley Crue, stuff like that.
Agent Orange.
They'd put together a gig, and we'd like open up for them.
Yeah.
And you know, we were buddies with Brian at Metal Blade Records, and there's a local club in Los Angeles called Wolf and Rissmuller's Country Club. Very nice club. I mean, it had a big stage, nice dressing rooms, balcony, sound system, everything really good. And so we played there a couple of times, and a couple of times there was like a Metal Blade Records show, so there'd be a band like bands like Bitch or Pandemonium and Omen and us, and we'd get to play. And that was some of the other cool things that we did. You know, so we never really, once again, when you say touring, we never really did that much or any touring traditionally, but every time we could get a chance to play live, we would do it.
Yeah. I was saying a minute ago, like you had to go tend to your dog, but like the photos you guys are posting online, like hanging out with like Iron Maiden or Dio or whatever. What was that? Was just right place, right time, or were you guys actually doing opening gigs for those bands when they came through town? Or
well, you know what? No, and yes. Here's what happened. Like, let's say there's some pictures on Instagram I posted at Rush. I had a friend in Canada, and he said, "Hey, Rob," he goes, "there's this band, Rush. You know, and they're up here playing. I think you guys would like them because they're playing hard rock like you guys."
Yeah.
Well, he goes, "If they come to town, you should see them." So I went down to, I think, the Whiskey A Go-Go to see them the first time they played. There was only a handful of people there. So we ended up going backstage with them, visiting with them and friends. And so the next couple of times they came to town, you know, we'd go and hang out with them, you know, smoke a joint or something. You know, it was all very kind of like friendly. And that was the story with Rush. As they got bigger, you know, once again, when you're playing like, when you're playing at a show and there's like 10 people there, it's easier to get backstage and hang out with the band. When you're playing at a place that has 10,000 people, sometimes if you're one of the band's relatives, you have a hard time getting backstage or what have you. And I have some funny stories. I got lots of funny stories. So we're buddies with Rush. They came through 2 or 3 times, and every time they're getting bigger and bigger, And finally, they did play at a giant venue out here called Long Beach Arena, and it's a big, round place. Matter of fact, Ed Parker, the guy that brought karate to the United States pretty much, he actually brought Bruce Lee over from Hong Kong. They'd have like big karate championships there. So it was a gigantic, round building, and they'd build a stage at one end. And I saw a lot of my favorite bands play there. But getting back to that, we went to go see Rush there, and we were buddies with their road manager at the time, and we were backstage talking and stuff, and he goes, "Hey, do you guys got seats?" I go, "Yeah, no, we got seats." He goes, "Well, look, I got the front row seats or something." And he goes, "If you want them," he goes, "I'll give them to you, but give me your tickets. I'll give them to someone else, one of our other buddies that don't have tickets to the show, right?" And more than likely it was sold out. So I remember him giving us these tickets, and it was me and Tim or Greg. I don't know who was in the group when we were with that. But we get to where the thing was, and I don't know how this happens, but we got this giant arena, and somehow right where these seats were, there was like a pole right in front of the 2 seats that they'd given us. And, instead of being angry, we thought it was like the funniest, you know what I mean? Like you're given like, front row seats, and you're a little bit off to one side. And I guess that was like a post holding up like a lighting rig or the sound system or what have you. So what we did is we just left that area. We kind of walked around until we found somewhere else to sit and watch the band.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah.
Now, the Iron Maiden show, our photographer at the time, Greg Hazard, had done a bunch of pictures for Iron Maiden for like one of their tour books. Mm-hmm. And so he got us backstage with them. And there's a funny story with that too. They were playing, I forget where it was, but it was a pretty big place. And when we got backstage, there was like a backstage area, and there was like 100 people there, and they had catering, like food, drinks, and everything like that. But that was like the backstage. But then there was another backstage, so we went backstage to where the band actually was. So it was just the band and us, and possibly Greg, our photographer. Yeah. And once again, they're all changing their clothes because they're all sweaty after the show. Yeah. And so that's where you see some of the pictures of us with them.
Okay, that's very cool.
That was so early on at the time. I didn't even know who they were. I mean, I know this sounds funny, but I met one of the guys, and I said, "Hey, are you the drummer?" They go, "No, I'm the singer." So
yeah,
ignorance, because sometimes when you see bands, and that's another one of my stories. When I first bought I remember Greg and there was a record store right across from our high school, and I remember we went in there one day, and there was Black Sabbath's first album, and Greg shows it to me. He goes, "Hey, what do you think these guys are like?" And I go, "I don't know," but I go, "It's kind of creepy looking. It's cool. Should we get it?" So we ended up, one of us bought it, and I'm sure the next day one of us went back and bought the other one that was there. But when we looked at that first album of theirs, we'd never heard of them. We didn't know who they were. We didn't know whether they were good or bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're as old as we are, some of these things are pretty amazing. Another one was Deep Purple in Rock. It wasn't their first album, but I remember seeing it at a local Sears record store. And they had a record section inside the Sears store, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the same thing. I was with Greg, and I pulled it out, and I said, Deep Purple in Rock, and we're looking at it going, now I wonder if this is a good album. And obviously these are albums that you look back on, they're some of the greatest albums ever recorded.
Yeah.
And looking at them from a first-time viewpoint, they just showed up at the store.
Yeah.
Like if you never seen a Twinkie in your life, in your Twinkies.
Yeah.
So I mean, some of this stuff was amazing. A lot of times, because we were in a band and we're circulating around the music industry, a lot of times you get to meet other bands, or we get to go backstage or what have you. And, a lot of the bands, when you see us with them, it's before they were big. Right. We're hanging with Rush before they're known. Mm-hmm. We're with Iron Maiden on their second album. We saw Judas Priest play once again to a kind of like a small crowd. After their second album came out, they first toured the United States. So, I mean, some of these concerts we went to, the bands weren't that well known. Now, after they became really big bands, fast forward 10 years later, they're selling out the biggest auditoriums in the Los Angeles area and selling them out. So.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Yeah, right place, right time, right?
But the bummer is, I think, our band was doing well enough that I think when we were hanging out with these guys and we're mixing with them, we're talking about similar issues and stuff like that. We thought that, we're gonna follow these bands along the same path, but it just wasn't meant to happen.
Yeah.
And back then, if you didn't have like a lot of record company support and airplay, and a really decent, good manager, nothing was possible. I mean, it didn't matter how good your band was. You didn't have two or three of those components, you were headed for nowhere.
Now, do you think that's because you guys, like you said, didn't tour much? Because all these other bands I've heard, I mean, they toured relentlessly. So, I mean, do you think that was a factor?
Yeah, but a lot of the bands, for them to tour, usually it was record companies kicking down money for them. If you have like really good management and agents at the time back then, and you're on a major record label, they're trying to sell your record, so they would send you out on tour. You know what I'm saying? It's like we never had any of that record label support.
Gotcha.
And to be honest, too, like most of the guys in the band, we were working full-time jobs just to pay for our band room and support the band.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the bands, once they got signed to a major record label, which we didn't have the opportunity to, but I'm sure we would have done the same thing, they stopped working and they started being 100% full-time musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Since we were making zero off our music, we had to work full-time jobs just to pay the rent.
Right. Yeah, that's a downer, man. That who knows what could have been. But you guys would have won off and became like super gigantic metal stars or whatever, then I don't know, maybe me and you wouldn't have ever been friends, It'd have been harder to get at you, man.
But everything happens for a reason, and who knows why stuff does happen.
Yeah.
But I'm just thankful that the band got back together.
Yeah.
And we've been able to play some pretty amazing shows. We got to put out an amazing single, Witch's Game, which is, I think a little bit about that.
I know a little bit about that.
If you want to ask me some more questions about that, we talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
But then the live album and this new album, our fifth studio album, I think that pretty much everyone in the band is just really excited that we were able to come back after a 29-year break and actually get anything accomplished.
Yeah. And I feel really like humbled and blessed too, man, because I feel like I was, right there when that 29-year break got quashed and you guys were coming back, it feels like such serendipity. It feels like I caught you guys just at the right time, man, and like it just worked out so great. So I think I originally reached out to Tim maybe first and through Facebook or something. And then we all started talking, and we were talking about the project. So for anybody who doesn't know what the fuck we're talking about these guys being on our the soundtrack to our movie, The Planet of Doom. And so I think when we first started talking to you guys, it was about basically licensing the song Doomed Planet for the end credits of the movie. And then I think it was you who it was like you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, I was going to say, here's my memory how this came about. Tim's looking on the internet or on Facebook or something, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Rob, look at this. Here's a movie coming out, an animated movie called The Planet of Doom."
Yeah.
And our third album, One Foot in Hell, we had a song that I wrote the lyrics to, Doom Planet, which is kind of like where we're sitting at right now in the world, right? So we were kind of stoked saying, wow, here's a Planet of Doom movie. We have a song, Doom Planet.
Yeah.
We were thinking, wow, this is going to be maybe this will be like something that we can participate in. And so, our bass player and manager, Jarvis, I think he reached out with you and you guys worked on some kind of arrangement so that you guys could use our song. And from my original understanding, it was going to be on the end credits of the movie.
Yeah.
And I would, this is really cool because there's a lot of movies I've seen, like The Matrix or whatever. They'll play some music you never heard by band at the end.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to go out and look that band up and discover who they are and maybe go check them out, right? So I'm thinking, hey, this is going to be great. But I remember even maybe messaging you saying, I really wish we could have been, hooked up with you guys earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the listeners know the story, but if they don't, there's a group, is it 15 artists, right? Or is there
15,
15 artists matched with 15 musicians
for
segments of the movie. And I think, we were thinking, man, I wish we could have wrote a song for that.
Yeah.
And not too long after that, you had a band that either dropped out for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And all I know is like someone, one of the guys in the band said, hey, do you guys want to write a song for the Planet Doom movie? And we
Yeah.
sat down and looked at each other and go, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's how it went, man. I didn't know behind on your guys' side of things that you had observed the movie and made that connection first. That's pretty cool. But yeah, we did. We just wanted a song from you guys on the movie, and of course, Doom Planet was so fucking perfect. And I remember talking to Tim and my Tim, not your Tim, and saying like, hey, man, I wish we could get these guys to actually do a song, an original song. And we were like, oh man, those guys don't have time for that. They're not going to do that, man. Those guys are huge. They're not going to fucking waste their time doing that. So we were just elated, man, when you guys signed up to do it. So going back to the end credit thing, like, like anything else in the showbiz world or whatever, there's all these kind of like legalese things or whatever. And that's what we were kind of relegated to with Doomed Planet, was that we could only use it for the end credits. We couldn't show it on a trailer, like in any advertising for the movie. We still can't for that song or whatever. And we couldn't have it in the proper movie because it moves it into some other like legal bracket. And then there's distribution. It's like, we know you guys are a shoestring operation, just a couple guys making a movie. So if you can keep it in the end credits and don't use it in any advertising for the movie, we're good. And you guys can do it, and you could have it for a song and a steal. And that's what we did. So then when we worked out the deal with the original song, that's like an original, that's an off-label song. We didn't have to fucking deal with Metal Blade or whatever. No offense to them. I get it. I know how it works. But that was a nice, tidy way to not only get an original tune out of you guys after so many years, but to be able to actually use it and not like have to pay Metal Blade $1 bajillion or something that we don't fucking have. So yeah, so it worked out really, really well, man. I mean, all things considered, it couldn't have worked any better. And you guys are the only band who's got 2 songs in the film. So
well, we're really excited about the project, and maybe I'll give you may know some of this, but there's a little bit of back story to this thing too. So, matter of fact, our new album's coming out. A lot of guys are going, wow, they can't believe you sound like Cirith Ungol. And we're like, well, what would we sound like? We're Cirith Ungol.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of interviews, and I try to explain to people, it's like, after the Beatles broke up, if they got back together 10 years later, would you be surprised that they still sounded like the Beatles?
Right.
And I mean, people would say, well, no. And so, I mean, I think we were kind of shocked that people were surprised that we could sound like us. And matter of fact, when Witch's Game came out, people were saying the same thing, like, wow, these guys can still write material.
Yep.
As soon as we had a band room, we started working on new material.
Yeah.
And Witch's Game was actually a song that we were working on, and we were calling it Leather Wings. I don't know if you know that or not.
No, I didn't know that.
That's like the name, the working name of the song. Now, we may not have lyrics for it or anything, but that was kind of like what we were calling it.
Yeah.
And Tim was writing the lyrics for it, and we'd all put together the music. And when we got the go ahead, like, hey, you guys want another song? We were kind of looking through. We were working on 3 or 4 songs at the same time, but we thought, hey, there's some like riffs in this Leather Wings song that we can actually turn this into like Witch's Game.
Yeah.
So the whole song was completely rewritten. The lyrics were completely rewritten to match, your storyline.
Yeah.
And we tried to take into account too, how long the segment was going to be. So we didn't want to make it a 3-minute, song for something that might be like a 8-minute segment or what have you.
Yeah.
So we tried to get all those pieces to fit together, and that's how we ended up coming up with Witch's Game. Very happy with the song. I love it. I love also the way it has 2 moments where it kind of breaks down into like a slower, kind of doomy sections. And it's just very excited about the song, and we're really excited about it being in the Planet of Doom movie.
Yeah, we are too.
I want you to know I'm one of your biggest supporters.
You are. I know you are.
Yeah, I'm very visual, and I love movies, and I love media and stuff. And just the fact that we're going to have a couple of songs in your movie is just, it's made almost being like the highlight of our career, at least for me.
Oh man, you made my day. You do that a lot though. You're just such a kind soul, man. I told you this before, but if the 14 or 15-year-old me, knew what I was sitting here doing today, like he'd just fucking freak out. It was so worth the paddling in the hallway, man.
But no, there's other really good bands in your movie too.
Oh, of course, man. Yeah, for sure.
Man,
Absolutely.
you gave me that little sampler thing,
Yeah.
and a couple of the bands, especially the band uh, Mesa
Yeah, Messa. Yeah. Yeah.
from Italy.
Yeah.
Oh, I was blown away with that. So
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
trying to say it's like us sharing uh, like a little bit of space with all these famous bands, and will be famous bands.
Yeah.
And here's another thing: someday I'll be gone, you'll be gone, we'll all be gone, but that movie will still be on Netflix.
That's right. That's right. Or whatever future, fucking hologram, fucking whatever people, it just goes right, implants right into your brain, whatever's, because we won't be gone for like another, like 50 years, man. We got a long time to go, man. But yeah, dude, it's incredibly humbling. I still like, nerd out with friends and, people, and they're like, oh, I'm sick of hearing about this Cirith Ungol shit, dude. Like, I get it. You loved them, so no, it's really humbling, man. And like, I gotta tell you, man, and from a long time fan standpoint, and it's not just because it's on the movie that I'm making, but it's like, it legit is one of the best, I think, songs that you guys have done. I mean, it's nothing, saying nothing bad about the back catalog, because again, that's why I'm excited about it, is because of what you guys done. But like, yeah, and anybody who's not heard it, it's on Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff, or go get it. I think you guys even sold physical copies of it or whatever, but like, dude, it's a stunning fucking song. As soon as you're done watching this video, you should go listen to that song and do yourself a treat, because it's great, man. Yeah, I love everything about, like I said, the breakdowns, and I love the kind of finger scorn acoustic kind of like intro to it. It's like so fucking cool, man.
I want you to know, I'm always like, can we add wind there at the beginning?
Wind?
I'm always the guy in the band, like, hey, we had more wind and cowbell. That's
Yeah, cowbell. Yeah, wind's always
hey,
cool, man.
now wait, I got to get back. There's another like a little bit of a backstory on this too. Everyone keep asking, how come you didn't put Witch's Game on the album? And we had another song that was just on a Decibel magazine flexi disc, Brutish Manchild, which was one of our older songs back from the very early days of the band. And people keep saying, how come those were on the new album? And I just want to clarify, Witch's Game, we loved it. Brutish Manchild, we loved it. What we wanted to do with Forever Black, we wanted a whole album worth of brand new material that wasn't really associated with anything else. Yeah. Now, we could have probably put Witch's Game on there, but we wanted that to stand alone, almost like it's like its own statue. You know what I mean? It's like here's Forever Black over here. It's like an assembly of songs right here. But Witch's Game, this song we did for a project in a movie, and it's gonna be like its own pyramid standing out in the desert. Being worshipped as a separate entity. And so a lot of people still don't understand why we did it that way, but I think the only way to really explain it was we wanted these separate projects to be kind of on their own, and we didn't want to kind of cross contaminate, Forever Black with the Doom Planet movie or what have you. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Totally.
I mean, it was positive. There was nothing negative about any of these decisions. It was more like how can we make a new record stand on its own without having to rely on some of these other songs that we've done at other periods. So
yeah, no, I dig that. I think that's a really cool way to do it. And like I am actually glad for the fact that it stands on its own like that, because I feel like that's kind of a shared project. There's going to be a segment in a movie and two artists who are doing the artwork for that segment and all that. So yeah, it's kind of its own thing, and Forever Black's like it's like you said, that's another project, and yeah, man, that's a cool way to do it. So speaking of the new album, so That comes out pretty soon, or the whole album?
Yeah, it was going to be in. It was supposed to be released the day that we played at Keep It True in Germany, a big concert.
Yeah,
And it was one of the first concerts we played at after we got back together. We played here in our hometown at Frost and Fire 2.
yeah.
Then our show was our first show in Europe, and that was Keep It True, the 20th edition of that. And so they'd ask us back this year to play 2 nights, which is unprecedented. I mean, I don't know. Uh, a lot of other people were angry, like, why are they playing 2 nights? And other people like, well, I can't believe they're playing 2 nights. So people were happy and angry all at the same time. But the plan was for us to play maybe the first night, all the new material off the album. And then the second night, some of our greatest hits.
Yeah.
But since the concert got canceled, that's been rescheduled for another date. But the album is still going to come out on the same date, April 24th.
Okay.
And I guess there were so many pre-orders for the album, and it was already being produced and stuff, and I think also too, a lot of people are isolated, and it's kind of a depressing time. Maybe this will be a time for us to put something out so that they can enjoy it while they're at home, kicking back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think the two biggest things we need is toilet paper and entertainment, right? It seems like. So.
Unfortunately, though, our album is pretty dark and doomy, so it's not like opening a window and the sun shining, and it's more like pulling the drapes, and the darkness falls kind of. So.
Yeah, I try to explain to my wife. My wife just recently has gotten into like the stuff that I listen to. She's not 100% sold, but I'm winning her over a little more every day. But she likes a lot of it now. She couldn't stand it when I first kind of was shoving it in her face when I started doing the artwork and stuff like that. But one of the ways I always pitched it to was, back in the day, blues music, in its earliest days and all that, people would say, well, man, that's some depressing, sad, stuff and all that. And for blues musicians and enthusiasts of the art or the genre, they looked at it as like, that's what makes you feel good. It's like having a good cry. These chicks who watch these chick flicks have a good cry, and it's like, oh, I feel so much better. And it's kind of the same thing. So I tried to sell her kind of on that way of looking at it. It's like, metal and darker music and doom and stuff like that. It's like, it's like it's a catharsis, man. For me anyways, it gets that get the demons out, make you feel better, so.
Well, you're right. When you mentioned blues music, but country music, the same thing. The guy pickup truck breaks down, his girlfriend and the dog dies. So I mean, I think if we all wrote songs about how happy we are and like how wealthy we are and how beautiful our house is, and we never have to mow the lawn, and we never get sick, and all our relationships are 100%. Most people would be angry, like, I don't want to hear this shit, So maybe people can relate to that in music. Now, I think our music, though, I think we're always attempting to kind of explore, and it's kind of like not our mission statement, but like one of the things that we talk about in the band is we're always trying to explore the darker side of a man's eternal struggle.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it is. I think our music, there's some fantasy elements in it, but also there's some darker elements in it, about, the way the world is headed. And, I can't speak for Tim or Greg or whoever else wrote lyrics, but a lot of the music I've written is very doomy, like Doom Planet. I wrote Legions Arise, a song on the new album. That's actually more of an uplifting song. And what that song was for me was like a call to arms. Like, the band, we've been sleeping for like a long period of time. Now we've risen up again. And so come join us so that we can, do battle to fake metal or something like that.
Slay all the unholy hordes of posers.
False metal.
False metal. Yeah.
Well, there's another thing there too. This music it's an entertainment, and you mentioned that it's an escape. It's like this isn't a religion, this isn't a cult. We aren't. We want people to join our legion. Yeah. But they don't have to like be in indentured servitude for the rest of their life. They just have to just listen for like the 45 minutes till the album.
You are a slave for 45 minutes and two sides. Yeah, man.
But every time they come back and listen, we get the slavery, the indentured servitude again.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Master of the pit. uh, that's great, man. So, yeah, it seems like the first two, it's two, right? Singles, or if you want to call them singles or whatever, the first two tracks that have been dropped off the new album, those seem like they've just been really well received, right?
Well, pretty much, pretty much. I've done quite a few interviews, and I've also read a lot of reviews online. And what I'm hearing, what I'm liking, is people are saying, "Hey, it sounds like the band just picked up where they left off,
Mm,
and you guys sound like this album came about, and you never listened to the 29 years of music in between." And some of those could be taken almost as derogatory statements. I see them as very positive, because what we wanted to do, we were gone for a long time, but we were kind of forced to break up. We didn't want to. I mean, it was like there was a reality on the ground that some of our members were leaving, and we weren't making any money at the band, and the music world around us was changing, whether it was a hair metal or what have you, right?
yeah,
We always felt like we were at the wrong place and time, and so when the band broke up, that wasn't really something we wanted to do. It was something we were forced to do.
yeah.
So what we wanted to do is kind of continue, like, let's say if the band hadn't broke up again, this would have been our fifth album.
Hmm.
Now, we also, for everyone that thinks it sounds so much like our other stuff, I was worried that, hey, this is our new material. This is Cirith Ungol 5.0. Will people accept this because it's different, than what we did in the past? But I think what people are seeing, yes, it's different. Maybe the recording process was different. Maybe some of the songs are a little bit different. Uh, what the lyrical content or the theme of them is, but the actual vision of the band, or also the sound of the music, has stayed the same. And you know what I'm trying to say? It's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like our style.
yeah,
I mean, we've stayed with the style. We've stuck with it, and we're going to kind of, we're going to stick by it through thick or thin. And so
yeah,
I think that every time I read a review and they say something like that, and I think most reviewers are meaning it positively too, because we're not trying to follow any music convention. We're just trying to play what would be Cirith Ungol.
yeah. Well, I applaud that, and I don't think it's At least I hope they're not being derogatory, because it sounds like a compliment to me, and I would say the same thing, and I wouldn't mean it in a derogatory way. It's 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 awesome that it follows along the same path, and it sounds like you guys never, stop playing and whatever. Because I could name off a slew of bands who I like really liked, and they may not even broke up, but all of a sudden one day they just put out an album, and it's like, what the fuck is this? This sounds terrible, Heart, that's a great example. Like I loved Heart growing up, and they hit the '80s, and I guess I can't fault them because there's so many bands in the '80s who did that. Like they got all '80s. You know what I mean? It got really horrible, and whatever. But like that's a great example. It's like some bands I don't want them to change, man. And I just want them to keep making good music and pushing themselves, but like don't just go like completely way over here and do something, or whatever, And there's a lot of bands too that kind of had the same thing. They may have had a hiatus for a bit, and then they were affected, like you said, by all the music conventionality, that at the time, or feel like, oh, this is the new style, this is what kids are into now, or whatever, and then they make horrible, I think, style decisions based on that. And I applaud you guys for just saying, man, this is who we are, and this is what we know fans like, and this is what made us who we are. Why would we do it? Some even have a terrible time of replicating that, even if they want to do that. I think, you know what I mean, because they're not young and angry anymore, or like I was saying at the top, maybe their vocals aren't as strong as they used to be, or they don't have that same singing range anymore, or they're just kind of tired, they're not young and hungry, whatever. But man, you guys really nailed all those elements down. You stayed true. You put out an album and you're continuing to put out music that is on par, quality wise with what you did in the past, but you guys still sound like, if you put on a set of headphones and you listen to the two new tracks that are out, like you would think you're listening to a bunch of 20-year-olds playing and singing. It's like it's amazing, man. So I mean, I think you guys nailed it in all the right ways.
I appreciate that. Have you heard the rest of the album or just those two songs?
Just the two songs. I'm not I'm
Well,
I'm not that much in the biz, man. I don't have access to it.
well, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised because there's a lot of strong material on the album. And I think that's the other thing. Being from where I'm from, like from the 70s and 80s, a lot of my favorite bands, and I don't want to get in trouble here, but a lot of my favorite, biggest bands, their first three albums, I still think are their best albums,
Yeah, yeah,
And, so what I didn't want to do, and I'm sure the band was thinking the same thing, was, we don't want to be people still saying, hey, King of the Dead's their best album, or Paradise Lost is their best album.
mm-hmm.
What we wanted to do is try to move forward, but once again, stay in that same style, not like we're trapped in it, but also try to embrace what we consider, our musical style and go with it.
Yeah,
And I'm really happy with the way the album came out. I mean, there's always things, if you could redo it again, you might do something different here and there.
yeah,
But I think the songs are really strong. And I think it's Paradise Lost had a few songs on it that felt like they weren't really, part of like an entire uh, uh, coherent group of songs.
mm-hmm.
But I think this is going to be closer to like King of the Dead or One Foot in Hell, where the entirety of the album, like you start it, and when it's over, you don't go back and say, well, yeah, there's three good songs on there. That's another thing funny. I think kids today, or younger generations, probably don't realize this, but when we'd be going through those record racks back in the 70s and 80s, you pull out an album and you take it home. Sometimes based on just the artwork on the album cover.
Yeah,
And I remember that's the band Dust, one of my favorite bands. Frank Frazetta, they
yeah,
used one of his pictures.
yeah, yeah,
No Giants, what it was called. Anyway,
yeah,
we remember buying that, and we weren't really even sure. And after we found out what they were like, we went back and found their first album, Dust's first album, and bought it. But a lot of times you get home and you'd play an album, and that's not being one of them, but you'd play an album, and there may be one good song on the album, or sometimes two good songs.
yeah, yeah,
And the rest, I don't want to say it was filler, but a lot of times it'd be like a top 40 song or like a slow song or this or that.
yeah,
And the bands that I always felt really happy with when an album came out, like let's say Black Sabbath Master Reality,
yeah,
or Captain Beyond, or let's say Montrose first album, you put it on and you play it from beginning to end. And when the record's done at the end, you're just going, hey man, every song on that album was great.
all killer, no filler.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we were shooting for. Once again, I'll have to let the listeners and the audience be the judge of that. But that's what we were aiming for. Whether we achieve that goal, I can't say, but that's what our goal was.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, man. I'm really looking forward. I'm really excited to hear the whole thing. But no, I know what you were talking about too, about buying one just for the artwork, and you get it home and you're like, that one always the award for me goes to Wishbone Ash, that Argus album. I love that cover with that like centurion like dude kind of on the front holding the spear, and he's got that big badass helmet on and the red cape. Just visually stunning, man. It's not artwork. Oh, well, it's a photograph, so I guess it's artwork, but you know. And I've tried over the years, just based on the goddamn album cover, like I want to love that album so much, but I really don't like that album. Like I just don't. You know what I mean? But I guess I could say
Funny
that.
story about Bonasso, because we went and saw him quite a few times, and as a live show, their live shows were so fantastic. I would go buy their albums, but the albums weren't nearly as striking as their live performances.
Wow.
So when Argus came out, I went and saw him, and if you actually went and saw that show, you might go back and actually like the album more because the show was so fantastic.
Oh,
So,
I'm sure I would. There's a lot of bands for me like that. I've either heard the album and didn't like it, you know, and saw them live and fell in love and forgave the album, but or vice versa. I went, you know, saw them live and got blown away, and wait, I was saying, or you know, the album was super good, and then I went and seen them, and they just sucked live. You know what I mean? So I'll just listen to the album, and you know, there's plenty of bands who can do it both and do it really well, but yeah, I hate those experiences when it's kind of one or the other. You know what I mean? But you guys do it both really well.
Well, I think I really appreciate you saying that. We're always striving to, once again, whether you meet the goals that you set for yourself in life, sometimes you fall short, but I think it's trying to meet those goals that I think what set people apart from, you never not getting up and trying. At least we're trying, so.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. I noticed the jacket back there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Lean to your left. Yeah, there you go. That's so rad, man.
That's painted. A lady in Austria. She's actually online. Her name, her company's called Savage Manufacturing.
Okay.
And she paints like acrylic. I think it's acrylic on leather jackets.
Yeah.
And I showed it to Michael Whalen, the painter that painted the original painting of that. It was called Stormbringer.
Yeah, Stormbringer.
On the cover of the book called Stormbringer by Michael Moorcock on the Dahl book science fiction series.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, damn, it's really good, So I hung it up there. I don't have the great backdrop like everyone does during this crisis, So
I don't.
I do.
I don't. Mine's a big bunch of just shit. But hey, I'm sitting in a working studio, so I don't.
No, it looks great. It looks great. Now, also too, my background's not so good, but I'm wearing I want you to see I'm wearing my Metal Blade records.
Yeah, showing the love. Yeah. No, the jacket's great, man. I remember I think you texted me a photo of it when you got it or something. Somehow I saw it. You showed it to me or something, but or maybe did you have it at the Milwaukee gig? I don't think you did.
Yeah, I possibly did.
I think either you had it or that's when you maybe showed me photos on your phone. It was one of the two, but yeah, I saw that and I was just blown away right down to the detail, man. She fucking nailed it, But
a lot of our fans have tattoos of the band, and there's a good friend of ours, Robert, who lives in northern Italy, and he had it tattooed on his arm in full color. And when we played in Finland recently, they were there, him and some of his friends, some good friends of ours, and they were backstage, and I picture me with my jacket and his arm. I'll send you a picture of it because it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, buddy, that's cool. Yeah, no, man. I told a couple of friends of mine, like, if I had like, I can't even imagine what it'd be, $3,000 to $5,000 or something like that. If I had that to drop, I'd get that whole fucking thing tattooed on my back as like a big back piece. I would. I'd be happy to have it. That would be awesome. But I can't even imagine what those things go for. I got a bunch of tattoos, but I don't have anything big like that. I don't have thousands of dollars to drop on a tattoo. But maybe one of these days.
Actually, for a heavy metal guy, I don't have any tattoos at all. And I think what it goes back to not only how you grew up, but like what happens in your life. I remember for the longest time, like America's Most Wanted was on, and how they'd always try to catch people's, but tattoo of a tiger on his arm.
Yeah. It's a great way to keep from getting
bitch tattooed on his back.
Yeah. He's got this really elaborate, bright green deal going on his back, man. It looks like something from some fantasy art book, that Michael Moorcock wrote, But yeah, speaking of all that, man. So how that's a great thing we should chat about. How did you guys get hooked up with Michael Whalen and get the art to do it? I'm imagining, so the art was from the Moorcock books originally first, and then maybe you guys reached out to him to license it.
Oh, of course. There's a long story to that, but I can make it short. But it has some funny twists and turns in it too.
Yeah, do tell.
What we did is for years we were trying to get record company interest in a band, and we'd send out cassettes. And there's a joke that some guy was like an A&R guy, like let's say at Warner Brothers Records. Every day he'd get 100 cassettes in, and the joke was his secretary would take them and open the envelope and throw everything away and peel off the label and like erase it and give it to him so he could like record his favorite bands, for I mean, that's what the joke was, right?
Yeah.
So after sending out a whole series of cassettes, and that's what they wanted, they said there was before CDs, right? So send us a cassette, and never getting a response, we decided, hey, let's put out an album like a demo, but a demo that's so advanced that people aren't going to be able just to throw it aside or set it down. So in order to do that, we had to have a good material, had to be recorded good. We needed a good album cover, good photography, good production. You know, it had to be pressed on good pressing and printing and everything, right?
Yeah.
So every way that we did on that, we didn't cut any corners. And so we were getting this whole project together, and the plan was to send those out to the record company saying, hey, look, we're not sending you cassette. Here's like an album just showing you what we could do as if we had, you know, some kind of like major backing, what have you. And so at the time, we were finishing up the recording, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do for a cover. And we'd always planned, Frank Frazetta, who did the Dust stuff, he did some other Conan books and stuff. We were very into all the sword and sorcery literature.
Yeah.
He had a painting called Berserker, which shows a guy on a horse, you know, jumping over like, you know, a giant army being crushed on fire kind of, and he's swinging his sword over his head, right?
Yeah.
And so that was always one of our favorite paintings. And we were trying to contact Frank Frazetta and try to see if we could get permission to use that. And right about the exact time, the band Molly Hatchet comes out with this picture on the cover, right?
Yeah.
And so we were thinking, you know, Jesus, you know, this is like, what are we going to do? This is kind of, and even though we hadn't had permission to use it, that was something that we were kind of, you know, all excited about.
Yeah.
Now, you got to remember, this is back in the day. Nowadays, things are so difficult to do. It's hard to do stuff, even if you have 3 sets of lawyers, right?
Yeah.
Back then, like, hey, I'll just write this guy a letter and maybe they'll give us permission to use the painting.
Yeah.
And that's how easy we thought it was. So that idea was shot down. And I remember Greg had loaned me Stormbringer, written by Michael Moorcock. And I was reading that at the exact same time all this stuff went down. And I remember looking at it and showing it to Tim and Greg, the other guys in the band, and going, you know what? Frank Frazetta's painting was good, but I go, the painting on this book I have in my hand, this is the best painting I've ever seen of this sword and sorcery genre, you know, of like, you know, a hero with his sword, you know, and then I was reading a book, a whole series of books, Elric, you know, he's a very tragic figure and stuff. And it just seems that this painting was just so unbelievable. And so I contacted Daw Books. Daw Books sent my letter to Michael Whalen, and he either called me or wrote me a letter, and we got in touch with each other, and he agreed to let us use his painting Stormbringer on our first album, Frost and Fire. Wow. And so that's how this whole ball started rolling down the hill. When our second album, King of the Dead, came around, we'd signed with Enigma Records, and part of our deal was, okay, you know, we'll do this record for you. And I know this is kind of a weird thing because most bands would be going, you know, we want all sorts of money or this and that. Like one of our things was, you have to pay whatever Michael Whalen wants to use one of his paintings for our second album, so we could kind of continue the theme.
Yeah.
And we picked out the King of the Dead picture, and that's actually what the name of his painting was called. And I forget exactly what the book title was. It was on. Might have been Bane of the Black Sword or something like
Bane
that.
Of the Black Sword, yeah.
But Michael Whalen called his painting King of the Dead. So I'd worked on the lyrics for King of the Dead, and so that's kind of like we decided, hey, well, that's going to be the title track of the album too.
Yeah.
So, and then when we signed with Metal Blade for our third album, once again, we're going, you know, hey, the only way we're going to do this is if you can get Michael Whalen to give us permission to use another one of his paintings, and then that one. And I have all the books right over here. I'm trying to think of the name right off the top of my head. I can't pull it out. Maybe it was a Dark Tower or something like that, or whatever it was.
Yeah, that one I don't know. King of the Dead. I knew that. I actually have most of those books. They're down in my basement too. But yeah, I don't remember the name of the paint or the from what book that was.
Yeah, and I could pull them up in a second, just rattle it out to you. But at the time, you know, we'd read all those books. All the guys in the band were really, you know, they were kind of popular books at the time anyway. It was kind of like a lot of people that don't understand the whole story. He's an albino superhero, kind of like Conan, but he has a sword, Stormbringer. When he kills people, their souls are sucked into his body, which makes him more powerful. Yeah. But the sword is also like another person on like another plane of existence, and it's called the Eternal Champion, and this Eternal Champion stretches over 2 or 3 dimensions. So it's kind of a complex, excuse me, complex storyline, but the artwork just seemed to fit so perfectly with it, and we decided that we were going to kind of stick with it.
Mhm.
Now, over the years, Michael Whalen was so cool and friendly. He was out in Los Angeles doing one of the big comic conventions it was on. I think now they're Comic-Con, but back then it might have had a different name. He actually brought one of his paintings up to my parents' house and for us to see it, and he left it there on the staircase up to where our band room was. And Flint, one of our bass players, his parents owned a restaurant in town, so we took him out to dinner and had dinner and talked and everything. And so we'd actually made pretty good friends with him over the years. You know, we didn't see him regularly, but when we did see him, it was like a cause for celebration.
Yeah.
And, so it was a kind of a wonderful thing. And when the band got back together, he lives in Connecticut. He came to our show. We played Defenders of the Old in Brooklyn, and he came out to see us at the show.
That's cool.
And, it was really for him to actually come see us play.
Yeah.
I remember him even saying something. He goes, I always liked your music, but I never really got it. He goes, once I saw you guys live, he goes, now I understand what you guys are trying to do.
That's cool.
And so kind of a big positive thing for us. So the
Yeah.
ability, just like, you've done a shirt for us, to be associated with artists that are so great just really makes our work easier as musicians, because the visual, the cover of an album or the t-shirt or the design of the record or whatever is so important to people visually. And I think to have that caliber of work just makes our job easier.
Yeah, man, it's a high caliber of work, and I, like that was always the purpose of an album cover, is to get you to pick it up first, buy it second, and take it home and listen to it third. And I think it does that job so well, man. I imagine that, like, for people who are uninitiated or didn't have a friend like I did to just pass it, because he could have passed me a dubbed cassette of it, with no artwork at all, and I would have still loved it. But when I saw that cover, man, it just knocks you for a loop, man. It's so rich and gorgeous that, like, I imagine that, like, helped sell a fuckload of more records than, if you guys would have just had, like, a white cover like the Beatles or something. You know what I mean? Like, it did the salesman job, I bet, quite well.
Now, I have a little backstory to that too. A few years ago, after the band had got back together, Michael Whalen had a show, and there's a famous art school in Pasadena called the Art Center. A lot of artists have been there over the years, car designers, painters, what have you,
Yeah.
Fashion designers. He was a graduate from there anyway, so they were going to have like an art show in Pasadena. And so Tim went down to go see it, and he had Stormbringer there. And it's not a big painting, like maybe 18, 20 inches wide by maybe, 36 inches tall, what have you. I got up close to it and I looked at it and I almost started crying. It was so beautiful, just the detail, like every one of his little brush strokes, just so creative. And it reminded me of the Renaissance masters, but seeing this painting in real life that had such an impact on me. I mean, this is decades later after our album came out, to actually see the actual painting, not to look at it and go, oh, that's not as good as I was expecting. Like you were saying earlier, maybe about going to see a band. When I looked at this painting, I'm going, this is unbelievable. Matter of fact, the plan was years ago when we first got together and put out our album. I told him, I said, hey, look, if our band gets big, because we always thought we were going to get big, I'm going to buy this for you, whatever you want. I'll pay this, and to hang it in my living room, right? And when we're down there at the show, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to think. I'm thinking, could I sell my liver on eBay? I mean, how much could I get? And his wife, beautiful wife Audrey, she was there too, and we were talking, and it hangs right above her like inkjet printer, like in her office.
Wow.
And she told me, she goes, Rob, she goes, we've been offered. She goes, if I told you, you wouldn't believe how much we've been offered for this painting. And I said, well, could have. I sold my kidney.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine what what the price tag on that would be like. I started seeing some of the things that I think I saw the Frazetta family. They were selling one of his just pencil sketches that was just a study for one of his paintings, and I think it was like 20 grand or something just for a pencil sketch. So you can imagine what such a famous iconic piece of artwork itself would cost. It's mind-boggling. But
At the show, he had a bunch of his other famous art. He actually did a series for the same Daw books of H.P. Lovecraft, which is one of my favorite
oh,
authors
those
of all
paintings,
time.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I was reading that when I was in before Cirith Ungol was together. I was reading the
yeah,
Dunwich Horror and stuff like that.
yeah,
So seeing all these paintings by him in this one show, and some of the paintings were big. They're like 5 feet by 6 feet, and the colors were just glowing off. Now I know you're an artist. I consider myself. I try to be an artist. I don't think I ever was, but I mean I drew and I paint. I remember when I'd always paint stuff together, I'd mix all the colors together, and whatever I mixed always came out to be brown. And that was a joke. If you mix light together, it turns out to be white. If you mix those same colors together, it's always brown, right?
yeah,
But Michael Whalen, he'd have these paintings that were like 6 feet tall, and the colors would actually almost look like there was light shining from behind the
yeah,
painting onto you.
yeah. Isn't that amazing?
And Tim looks at me, and I look at him, and I think either he said it to me or I said to him, like, what kind of human being can do this, right?
Yeah,
And Michael Whalen's son was at the show, and we're talking with him. He goes, "Hey, I grew up with he's my dad. He just does. That's what he does. We're just going, well, like this is, we're blown away just by looking at this,
yeah,
and we can't believe what kind of human talent has the ability to do this."
yeah,
But then Michael, so I mean, he's such a great guy, and he's so humble. He goes, "Well, you guys are just as talented. You're musicians, And we're like, no, no.
We're all a bunch of humble sacks, man. Isn't that funny? Yeah, that's
That was a great time, and I would encourage anyone, if anyone ever in the vicinity of where one of his painting is, or even a show, just to go check it out, because even though they look good on our album covers or on book covers or prints you see on the internet or what have you, the paintings in real life, there's no, and I assume it's your artwork's the same way. When you see the original, there's something about it that's just has more color to it and passion.
yeah. No, I agree. I've I was really jealous. My Tim, I call him my that works on a Planet of Doom. He made a road trip, not specifically for that, but he stopped in at the Frazetta Art Museum. I can't even remember what town that's in or whatever, but he stopped in there and he just said, "Man, you could take photos of it with your phone all day long, but like same thing you're saying, unless you're standing right there in front of it, it is just it's unbelievable." He said, "Man, it's like a million times cooler than like you said, you'll know, like, is it not going to be cool? Like, we actually see this in person, but it's like a million times cooler." So, I imagine it's the same experience with Whalen stuff, or anybody's stuff, like you said. But
And I love all that. Not only I love the literature, but the work with his Boris.
yeah, Boris, yeah,
Whalen, I mean, a lot of these guys paint in that same what sword and sorcery style. I guess
yeah,
that's what we call the genre of the literature.
yeah,
But it just was, to me, it's something that's been a part of my life, and I think it's made my life richer.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, shit, man. I really enjoy you talking to me, man. I know you've been really generous with your time, and it's been a real honor, dude. I really appreciate it, and I think we ought to end on a high note. Anything you want to plug or tell anybody before we sign off?
Well, I think I should finish up on Forever Black. We were looking
Oh
for
yeah,
another one of Michael Whalen's paintings, and there's 2 or 3 we haven't used, and they're all really good. They're very bright and colorful, and as the album was kind of nearing the end of us writing the songs, the direction was already, we saw this early on, and that's kind of what we were shooting for. But we saw this early on that, hey, this album's going to be very dark and brooding. And once again, you kind of want the album cover to kind of fit the mood of the album. And I remember Tim coming up and saying, he goes, we need something dark, something, of course we wanted to use one of Michael Whalen's pictures, we wanted an Elric thing. And Tim shows this to me. He goes, look at this Elric painting. And he goes, this is what I want. And it's like, it took me a few seconds to realize it, but it's like, I don't think we knew it at the time, but it was one of Michael Whalen's pictures of Elric. But the reason we weren't familiar with it, it was a study that he did. And it was a short thing. It's like, I think it's only maybe 9 inches by 12 inches. So it's not even the width of a full-length LP. But it seemed to capture the mood of what we worked on the album for so perfectly. We contacted him and he goes, yeah, if you guys want to use that. He goes, but it's small and it actually has quite a bit. If you look at it, and I think this is part of the charm, it's like you can see the canvas in the background very clearly. You know, when you look at it, especially, I haven't seen the printed album yet, but I've seen all the artwork, the layouts for the record. And it's the canvas and once again, each brush stroke, you know, it's not a lot of really fine detail. It's a lot of big, massive strokes, but each stroke means a lot. You know, I mean, there's one little that on his sword sheath, and it's just like a little glint of metal, and it's just like a little brush stroke of the glint shining off there. And it just so, and that's another thing, all the pictures we'd seen were online, and so we hadn't really seen very much any high def or high resolution photographs of this. And after we decided that's what we wanted, when he sent out the first high resolution thing, I think everyone in the band, we were like high-fiving over the internet, because it was just so perfect for what we wanted that we were just like, hey, this is great. And the one on Forever Black was called, when we were talking to him, I think he was telling me it's called Elric in the Wastelands or something like that, or that was the name of the file he sent. But a guy actually bought the picture at one of the comic conventions from him a few years ago, and it says it was called Elric in Exile. So I guess that's, and I asked Michael, I said, which one is it? And he goes, well, I guess it's Elric in Exile. So, but you know, we were calling it Elric in the Wasteland because it kind of looks like he's walking across the, you know, kind of looks like California out here when it doesn't rain. It's all parched and but just the look in his eyes, and you know, I don't know, to us it was amazing. So, and we're just really, like I said, we're proud to be associated with artists such as you and such as him, because it, like I said, it makes the complete package. You know, you just, like you said, if we had a white album or a black album, we could have a black album like Spinal Tap. Smell the Glove or something.
I saw one of those dudes from Metallica one time saying that their Black album, which was like, you know, in my opinion, the beginning of the end for those guys, but it was one of their most popular releases, I guess, just from a commercial standpoint. But they said they got the whole Black album idea from Spinal Tap because they were big Spinal Tap fans.
Yeah, I read that. You know, it's funny about that, but those guys are famous just like the Beatles, you know, and once again, if you're famous, you know, you could have anything on your cover or nothing and you still sell records. You know what I mean? But like talking about, you know, we were hoping once again, and I think it was true. We were hoping, because we were fans ourselves. When you're flipping through the record bin and you see the King of the Dead or the Frost and Fire or something like that, you know, hopefully it piques their interest, you know.
Instant sale, like I would imagine. Like if any kid, you know, would, especially in that time when this kind of music we're into was at its, you know, I don't want to say peak. Obviously, there's still tons of people, but I feel like in America, it's metal and even rock for a lot of, you know, good or bad is kind of dying or is already dead. I don't know. I'm not trying to be bleak, but I mean, it's way bigger in Europe and shit. I mean, I know too many bands who confirmed that for me already. I mean, you know, but I'd imagine at that time, man, some kid flipping through a record rack, seeing Frost and Fire, any of the albums, and it's like, I don't know anything about these guys, but this is fucking going home with me. You know what I mean? And like, it's just cash registers ringing all day long when they see that, man. You know.
I have another couple of little funny stories. They're tied together, but okay. So me and Greg met in junior high school, and we were the first guys that got together kind of to start the band. I always liked cars, like racing, and so did he. So we talk about that. We talk about music, but I remember him bringing, you know, and showing me like Thin Lizzy's first album or something, say, hey, look, this is a new band that came out. You got to hear these, or the band Mountain, or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And so we'd always go on these record searches. So we'd go down to Los Angeles and buy records, or we'd go to all the local record stores. And because back then there wasn't no internet, so I mean, there'd be like maybe 20 places around town where you could go look for records, right?
Right.
But the ones that we were always looking for were in the import bins, because even back then, a lot of the stuff that we were looking for, there was obscure stuff coming over from Europe. And that's where we found the first Scorpions record, the first Judas Priest record.
Yeah.
And a lot of those bands, that's how we discovered them. But a lot of times we'd buy the record based on the cover. But after a while, we'd buy so many bands that were bad, we started doing a trick. We'd slit it with our finger. When, once again, you're thinking, no, I don't want you to think that we're like criminals, like we're not shoplifting or nothing, but we'd slit the record with the sleeve with our finger, the plastic. We'd slide the album out, and we got so good because we did this. You could look at the grooves. Now, if the grooves are really close together and smooth, it's usually something more mellow. If the grooves are really jagged, and you can pull out and go, next time you get a chance, go back to your daughter's room and pull out one of your records back from her and look at it. The heavier the song is, the more exaggerated the grooves are because they're wiggling back and forth, right? So we would actually buy records sometimes based on the cover and the groove looks. So, but we get them home sometimes, and they'd still be like a really bad record. Let's say there was a lot going on there, but we didn't like the music, what have you.
Yeah.
So there's this place we go near where our band practiced at my parents' house, and we'd go up this road, and it was on kind of like a cliff overlooking this valley that made 300-foot valley, and at the bottom was kind of like a dry. You couldn't call it lake. There's probably never a lake there, but it was like just a 300-foot at the bottom of a valley. There'd be like a flat thing, like maybe like half the size of a football field, right, of just hard sand, right?
Yeah.
And so we'd go up there on this cliff, and a lot of times we're up there smoking a little bit before we go practice. But we take the bad records and we throw them like a frisbee, and they go, and then they come down, and you this like 300 or 400 feet. When they got to the thing, like part of it was like skill on our own, like whether we were like discus throwers at the Olympics or whatever, back in Roman times. So a lot when this worked out perfectly, and these are only bad albums, okay, right? And this is before there was recycling or.
Oh yeah, man. Don't worry, you're all right.
Yeah. So anyway, we throw them up, and they go way up in the air, and when they hit the ground, they'd explode in just a million pieces. Then we'd get so excited. We were like, that was kind of like the sacrifice of the bad record.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how long we did that, but we did that quite a bit. I think until the neighbors probably started coming out there and wondering what we're doing, like throwing stuff off the side of the cliff.
We're killing shitty records.
That was a fun time that we had doing that.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. Well,
now, a lot of these stores, this is another thing, and some of these were good. A lot of times you'd go in there, and they'd have Black Sabbath first album, and it would be a cutout, like a promotional copy. And like, let's say the record company had a bunch of promotional copies, they gave them to people.
Yeah.
And people turn around just turning them back into stores to get money for them because they wanted, the money was more important to them than an album, right? So a lot of them chopped off corner, like a promotional thing, or it'd have a hole drilled into it.
Yeah.
So they'd sell, I remember this, the records would be $1. So those would be in the thing called a dollar bin.
Yeah.
So we'd look in there first, looking for, unusual stuff or good stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes, once again, they had a hole in it. They had the corner cut out, but we found quite a few really good bands.
Yeah.
Their promotional copies like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, I remember trolling record shops for, I had a thing where I'd go in and I'd have enough money from my little job or whatever every week to buy 3 records each week. And I'd buy, because that's generally what I spent most of my money on, that comic books and shit. But I'd get 2 of them that I wanted to get, that I knew of already, like I got to get this album, and then I'd save with a 3rd record for, I'd just look for something that had the coolest cover, that just looked like this has got to be cool, man, and I would buy that. And like, I found so many cool things the albums that I still treasure and love today to listen to that way, just because I took a chance on them, so yeah. But that was definitely a different time. It's not as, I don't think, cool of a thing anymore. luckily there's still record shops, and I go with my daughter once in a while. She likes to go look for stuff and buy new records, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm not 16 anymore. I don't know.
Well, I still get excited. One of my good friends, he's doing an article for us in a big magazine, Sweden Rocks, and he has a big record collection. And he was sharing with me, he just bought a few albums, like of some of these old heavy metal bands that most people don't know about. They're very obscure.
Uh-huh.
And my point is, to this day, he mentioned a band to me that I'd never even heard of. And I just went and listened, looked them up. And it's so amazing that there are still bands out there that every one of us that thinks that we know everything about where heavy metal came from. You need to go back and research it and listen to more, because the average heavy metal guy, there's probably hundreds of bands they've never heard of. A guy like me, or Greg, one of the other guys in the band, maybe there's only a handful of bands, but still there's a handful. It's just like if you're panning for gold and you get that big nugget, you find this album and you're like, how could I miss this album after so many years? So
yeah. Yeah, no, there's I still find them all the time, and well, that's just talking about the old stuff. I mean, there's so much new stuff coming out. I hate when people say, oh, there's nothing, they don't make them like they used to, or there's nothing good out anymore. They're not making good music anymore. That's the biggest crock of shit, because I hear good shit every day. I'm constantly listening to new stuff like daily. And the internet's great for that, or the streaming stuff like Spotify or whatever, to find stuff. But I definitely still, I had a guy on here from the band The Sword last week, and he tipped me off to this old prog rock band. I don't know if you're into that kind of stuff, but it was Star Castle was the name of the band, and I'd never heard. I was like, man, I thought I knew a lot of prog rock bands, but I'd never heard of them, and so. It's not metal, but it's a genre, another genre I enjoy, and it was like really cool, But he's like, yeah, this band sounds just like Yes, but they do Yes better than Yes. And so,
and David, I agree with you though. Some people have said that to me. Your band, people love bands from the 1980s, especially in Europe, but there's no good bands out today. But I disagree. There's a lot of bands out today and a lot of really good music, and there's so many different genres of metal or hard rock or whatever. I think the unfortunate thing is, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, people will be looking back and looking at their band just like they're looking at our band, and wondering why they didn't appreciate them more when they were around at the time. Oh, yeah. And I think that's sad truth, but the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty good saying, and I think it holds true in a lot of instances. So.
Yeah. Are you able to rifle off any of the new bands or newer bands that you're really into? Say, we'll just keep it in the metal genre or the hard rock genre, but is there any new ones that you can pull out of your head right now that you'd care to share?
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'd be the reason I don't want to do that. Some of them, I have so many friends in bands now. It's like if I don't mention one of them, I'll hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
But just put it this way. Almost every band out today that's got music out deserves at least one listen to. And then if you like their music, you like that style, you can go back and follow them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just like when you send me that sampler off the Planet of Doom,
mm-hmm.
It's like Vokonis was on there and the Mesa was on there. And I go, I haven't really heard these bands that much. And so I start looking into them, and just to like broaden my scope, because I like to listen to a lot of different stuff, and it was pretty amazing to hear stuff that I was just so remarkably, especially the band from Italy, I was just intrigued by their.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, and so so the answer to your question really is the music out today is as good as the music was from before. It's just a different time,
Mm-hmm.
So people need to appreciate and support that, because if not, there's no music industry if you don't support the music.
Right. You can't just keep listening to what you did when you were young. You gotta branch out, or it gets killed. But I guess all the young people are listening to what that's some of these bands are their Led Zeppelin or Cirith Ungol, now, and so they'll get. But I just never wanted to be that guy. I saw my uncles growing up. They turned me on all the good. They were the guys that turned me on to Rush and Black Sabbath and a lot of stuff that I still like. But I saw not long after that, they're still listening to that stuff. You know what I mean? Like I go back home and talk to my uncles, and they're still listening to fucking Journey, and it's all they'll talk about is like Journey and Rush and REO Speedwagon and Genesis and all this kind of stuff. And those bands are awesome, but like it's like, come on, guys, man. They don't. They don't have a clue about it. They never stretch past their high school years or whatever, well, college years, So I don't know. Bad for them, whatever.
It's been so good talking to you, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time. And I know we're friends, but also you taking the time to actually try to let other people know about our old band, and our new album coming out, because this is a big thing for us. This record,
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, unfortunately, this is kind of the worst time on the history of music to have a record out. But I think, us putting out this album after so many years really was an important step for us.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that, like I said, that, what's happening right now in the world kind of, we can make our way through to the other side all in one piece, so that we can actually like continue to where maybe not exactly where we left off, but like, those of us that are left will like, pay tribute to those that aren't with us anymore, and we'll just continue on. So
Yeah, who knows, man? Maybe the world somehow turn out better. Wouldn't that be cool?
yeah,
Let's think about it that way. But yeah, man, same with me, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving me a lot of your time, man, and I couldn't be more thrilled to talk to you as always. And yeah, man, we'll be expecting the album coming out, and I thanks for talking to us, man. I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. And I think I got teenagers who've been texting me, telling me, when are you going to be done? I need you to do this or that. So,
well, give your daughter back the Cirith Ungol shirt you borrowed from her.
no, man, this is mine.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not giving shit back. This is my shirt.
Hey, I'm pulling your leg, man.
I know,
Would you
man.
say hello to your family for me?
I sure will, man. You do the same. Give my love to the rest of the guys in the band, and we'll talk soon, okay, buddy?
Okay. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.